Welcome back to the Cannabis Community Project. Open up, Colorado. It's 420. Time to grind and burn.
This is not your son's stoner show.
Welcome to the Grind and Burn, a podcast from the Cannabis Community Project, broadcasting live from the Dank Studios at 3835 Elm Street in Denver, Colorado. We are the first media show to bring businesses to cannabis. Hey, Cannapreneurs, let me take a second just to tell you about Cushly Organic Products. Their company puts out products that are used in hospitals, healthcare facilities, clinics, and homes throughout the United States and beyond. So Cushly has invented this very unique product that works like none other. I use it myself, and many of my close friends and family use it. What it does is it eliminates odor. It doesn't mask it. It's not a perfume. It's not a cologne. It eliminates. And it's organic and it's non-toxic. And Cushly is one of the best. www.cushly.com. Also find them on Facebook and other social media under the same name. Cushly Organic Products.
The 6 degrees of Cushly. Yeah, it's amazing.
Cannapreneurs, thank you for joining me once again on a lovely Saturday afternoon as we quickly move into May of 2016. Coming up on a half a year, if you can believe it. Time is flying for me. I've been in the new studios here at Dank for just over 4 months now, getting very accustomed and acquainted to how things work up here. You know, if you haven't had a chance to experience the Dank experience, use me as your excuse to come up here and check them out. 3835 Elm Street, Denver, Colorado, right out of the Park Hill area. I'm at the first studio on the right when you walk in. So there's a yoga studio there, and then off to the right of that is my little studio. Come in, check them out, check out the medical, recreational dispensary part. Say hi to the owner, Jay Griffin, if you see him up there. Or stop by on a Wednesday or a Friday and do some free yoga classes. They work on donation only. It's a whole community up there. Hey, speaking of communities, I want to give you some insights into what I have coming up over these next couple months. I have some very big projects I'm working on, and I want those of you who have taken the time to listen to my show, engage with the community, be part of what we are doing here. I want to give you the first insight to what's actually happening right now as we speak. So I'm part of a group, you might know, you might have heard of it, the Aurora Cryptocurrency Center, and I have the supplementary business aspect, the Crypto Cannabis podcasts, segments, more or less, I guess is what they are, the segments that I do, the Crypto Cannabis segments. Well, here's some exciting news. 70 acres of land has been purchased south of the state off of I-25, south of Trinidad, exit 2 through 6. That's right. You can't get any further without going into New Mexico. We have purchased 70 acres and possibly going to be hundreds more. We're forming a literal community, folks. Literally. A community of land. We're going to work the land. But here's what's more exciting. The land wasn't just land. It used to be a former town, former ghost town. It was called Morley, Colorado. A town that was incorporated by Rockefeller back in the oil days at the turn of the century when oil towns were sprouting up all over the place as Rockefeller scoured the country looking for oil and dominating the industry. Well, here in Colorado, the town of Morley was found to have methane and gas under its little hills down there. I mean, they're not quite the full mountains of the west, but it's definitely not the flatlands of Trinidad that you might be thinking of, the desert lands out there. They're actually kind of hilly. It's hilly land. So they found gas and there was oil, and they made a town. A couple hundred people, miners, schoolhouses, baseball teams, the whole deal. Well, then when the oil dried up and the town went bust, or whatever the final story was, they buried over most of the structures, they covered up the mines, and it sat dormant. And then we came along 80-some years later, and we bought it. There are still 100 existing structures scattered throughout the property. Foundations, more or less, because most of the structures have torn down over the years and withered away, and there's just more ruins and outlines of what used to remain. There's still a church, though, that still stands on the hill, Mission Ridge, and looks over onto the Spanish Peaks. And the town is going to be revived. 2.0, Morley. It's going to be a mining town again. But here's the thing. It's going to be a cryptocurrency mining town. We have bought it up. There's a group of people. I can't give you an exact number, but there's like 8, 10, maybe 12 or so loosely associated with this group that are living there. Some of them more full-time than others. Some of them preparing. And we're working on projects like energy creation to make Bitcoin mining, cryptocurrency mining, a net zero expense of energy, where it uses no electricity or energy that costs money, which is the only real expense in cryptocurrency mining. So we're going to eliminate that by working on alternative energy sources, creating more and more Bitcoin miners, more than we could ever possibly have in the office space off of Airport Road. And we're going to create this mining town 2.0 that now exists on cryptocurrency mining. So that's a big section of it. Now, there's some residents that are going to live there, but we're also going to have some bed and breakfast. We're going to have a huge hemp field planted because it's going to start to clean the water and the land that used to be there. And we're going to have people come there specifically to be part of the ranch, part of the community, the Cannabis Community Ranch. So next time you're heading south or next time you want a vacation, think about this. There's a cannabis-friendly place just a few hours south of the state where you can go, be all by yourself with just a group of like-minded people, and live in a ranch it has some accommodations, so it's not quite like camping, but it's definitely not a developed urban area. It's just out in the mountains, and it's not even a rural developed area. But we're going to be there, reviving this town of Morley. We're going to become miners 2.0 in the cannabis industry, and we're going to create more projects based out of this hub, and we're going to buy up more land, and we're going to get people like you to get involved. And for small, modest amounts of money, we're going to be able to build structures where people can live, plots of land where they can grow, and buildings where they can work on their own projects and businesses. Yeah, it's kind of far away, but that's the point. So think about it. This summer, anyone want to go camping? Contact me. I'll take you down. We'll go camping on the Cannabis Community Ranch in the town of Morley. Cryptocurrency miners revived by the Cannabis Community Project. Now that's exciting. Let's get into this week's show and let's learn about something that we can actually take with us into our life as we're building this community. And that's what my conversation with Hannah from RM3 Labs. This is what my conversation came down to, because she is a knowledgeable person who had a lot of information about testing and about the industry of regulation. And she brought that forth to this interview, and I learned a lot. And I bet you're going to learn a thing or two that you didn't know, not just about testing, but also about regulation and some little novelty things that we also talked about. Great conversation. Let's make sure we remember what we learned just a couple weeks ago. Since last week, I was not able to do a show since I was down in Morley, scouting out the land, setting up plans. I ran out of time, to be honest, and I just didn't have time to put the show together. But that's a good thing, because I was working on a bigger project, a bigger message. So with all that in mind, stick with it to the end. It's a great show. Here we go. Last week, short-term memory, flashback, relapse. Grind and burn, Cannabis.
So my name is Michael Bright. I am the CEO of a consulting company that is called Bright and Early LLC.
What is your specific focus? Is it hemp-based?
The answer is yes, it is definitely hemp-based, but hemp as in cannabis. So there's the three different sides. But one guy said it best. I said, so what happens after the federal government decides to mess with you or changes or advocacy or legislation or something or other happens? And he says, oh, no, we all know that it's 3 to 5 years. I said, then what happens? And he goes, industrial hemp. And I said, why? He goes, well, because that has legs. This is a blip. And how long the blip lasts, we don't know how long they will allow us, whoever they are, will allow us to sell a THC type of product without more regulation. And, if it gets reclassified, who knows what's going to happen then. After you get some numbers done, then you can start into a business plan. Keep it very, very simple. Just who, what, when, where, why. Very simple ways to do business plans. And from there, once you get that done, then you roll it all up into an executive summary. And then when you push all that into a PowerPoint presentation, that's called your pitch deck. You have to go through all that brain work to get to a pitch deck. Right. I mean, if I make 100,000 units, then it's less expensive than if I make 30 units, And so having that built into an Excel spreadsheet.
People are a little more savvy. Just in general, the general public is a little more savvy, and people expect to ask them about the number.
All right, so my name is Gregory Flores, CEO of Industrial Processors Corp. Came out to Colorado a year and a half ago from New York City, Brooklyn born, in order to help pioneer hemp food processing, and the most profitable right away.
Nice.
So the first time I came out here actually was February of 2014. After doing about 6 months of research on industrial hemp, saw that Colorado was the first state to get it approved to grow commercially. And I convinced one of my colleagues at the hedge fund to come out here with me, as well as two good friends. So in general, I like industrial hemp because it hits all the major, basically buzzwords right now in the market. Gluten-free, vegan, organic, high protein content, omega-3s and 6s, all the good omega fatty acids. And just being on the side where we're processing this stuff and providing it to the market as a raw material for them to use, we want to be able to drive that kind of innovation to see exactly what kind of great things people can make from industrial hemp, and not this, these knockoffs that you might see and find one-off in certain areas. We want to do all that research and bulk up the research that's already been done in Canada to show, what do we want to come out of the ground so that I can get this certain texture or quality or oil content at the end of the day. And a lot of that still has to be done. Being here at the Research Foundation event, it's kind of a testament to that. And it's great to see so many people becoming interested in industrial hemp and research in general. A city kid from New York coming out here and trying to grow industrial hemp from the ground, to me, sounded insane. Our model is to come out here, buy the equipment to process the seeds, clean them, sort them, all that good stuff, but really contract all the production out to farmers who already know what they're doing. And again, at this point, it's farmers who are willing to think more progressively and take that risk to grow a crop that we don't have any certified varieties, that we can get into the States easily. The DEA still blocks shipments from Canada, France, Italy, wherever it might come from. But we've had a very entrepreneurial environment here in Colorado, also backed by the Colorado Department of Ag. Dwayne Sinning and the program he's built up there is great. So know your market, know where to go with the materials that you do grow, and work on those partnerships early before you put anything in the ground. And then also think about the quality of the seeds that you're putting in the ground. A lot of the crops in Colorado right now not growing to what they could be as far as on a yield basis. And that's because we've got seeds in the state that are from other parts of the country. They found their way in somehow, and they're not suited to the Colorado climate. Even though hemp itself is a hardy plant and you can grow it in multiple environments, if you're trying to get a reasonable harvest that's uniform and easy to chop down at the end of the day, a lot of work still has to be done to make that a viable thing for commercial grade farmers here in Colorado.
Contact information?
Sure. Phone number, it's a New York area code 917-379-5553. Email gregory@indprocessors.com, website of the same name.
My show is basically a community show, so it's here to promote those in the cannabis industry. So just keep the email and send me stuff if you want to come back on the show, more stuff or whatever.
Awesome. Yeah, there will be things in the future to announce for sure.
Cool, man. It was good to meet you.
Thanks.
To enjoy.
Great.
How long have you been listening to the show? Long enough to know that it's your show, and all you got to do to be on it is just reach out to us at cannabiscommunityproject.com or email brainstorm@cannabiscommunityproject.com. Hey Cannapreneurs, this week's show is sponsored by Dairy Berry's Recording Studio. Dairy Berry's Recording Studio, located in Arvada, Colorado, is your local recording studio with affordable rates. Mark is well experienced and will make your show, music, or any audio you have sound great. He makes our show come across the internet loud and clear every week, and he can do the same for your project. Take a look at DairyBerriesRecordingStudio.com or call Mark at 303-456-8216.
So, let it fly. Go ahead.
What? There's
You said
nothing
you
to let
needed
fly.
to record.
Oh no, we need to come record and hang out with you and make some music.
Yeah, go ahead
But-
and make the music.
He's not here.
No, but
Just let it out. Let it. I'm a fictional stoner. Fictional stoner. Yeah.
Keep going with it. Fictional stoner.
No, functional.
Functional.
That's the word.
Go ahead.
I'm a functional stoner.
Functional, fictional.
I've got time left to work. I am not a blubber, getting down on my worth. I'm a functional stoner. I don't know. Just to put me on the spot.
Hi, this is a gentleman of ganja, here to give you some tips and proper etiquette when using the cannabis plant. Now, we're in the social media age right now, and I love the cannabis plant, as well as you do. But let's be a little bit more aware of the pictures that are being taken of us and the pictures we're taking. And it would probably be smart to have two pages, one personal and one for your job and your family. Now that we're on social, let's move on to dating. Guys, when dating a young lady and introducing cannabis with the conversation, let's not have the strand that's going to have the young ladies couch locked. That means stay away from the indicas, more hybrids and sativas, and music. Let's keep it electric chill, nice reggae, little jazz, not Eminem's freestyle battle raps. Not good look. And ladies, let's not turn the smoke session into a therapy session. Let's not listen to your ex-boyfriend's stories or your mama dearest stories. So, next week, I'll be back with more tips. Keep the vibes moving. Remember, life is a one big road with a lot of signs. Reach me at gog420@gmail.com.
Magic dragon, he lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist, land called Honolulu. And little Jaggy Paper, he loved Rascal Puff and brought him strings and sealing wax and other fancy stuff. Oh, Puff, the magic dragon, he lived by the sea, frolicked in the autumn in land called Honolulu. Together they would travel on a boat with billowed sail. Jackie kept a lookout perched on Puff's gigantic tail. Oh no, kings and princes would bow whene'er they came. Pirate ships would lower their flags when Puff roared out his name. Oh, Puff, the magic dragon, he lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist, land called Honolulu. A dragon lives forever, but not so little boys. Painted wings and giant's rings make way for other toys. And one great night it happened, Jackie Paper came no more. Puff, that Puff, that mighty dragon, yes, ceased his fearless roar. El Puff, the magic dragon, lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist, land called Honolulu. And Puff, the magic dragon, lived by the sea, frolicked in the autumn mist, land called Honolulu.
I'm Hannah McGregor. I am the hemp program manager for RM3 Labs, a cannabis and hemp testing lab in Boulder, Colorado. We've been around in Colorado here in Boulder since 2009. We primarily started testing for the cannabis industry, testing for mandated testing as well as research and development for any medical dispensaries or anyone just looking to gain a little bit of information about what's going on in their product.
What's the RM? I'm always curious about names, just out of curiosity. What's the RM3?
Yeah, so RM3 is Rocky Mountain Medical Marijuana. So we started this testing lab to test for medical marijuana here in the state of Colorado. So RM3 Labs.
So what's your involvement or attachment to the business? Your business card says development. Are you also an owner or founder?
I actually just came out with the company about a month ago. I was working at another testing lab. However, I'd always been really impressed with the science and the focus that RM3 had put in front of the table. And so came over there looking to get a little bit more involved on the hemp side. As of March 1st, 2016, any lab that's allowed to test for the cannabis industry here in Colorado, we can now test for the hemp side as well. So my role here is to come on and get a little bit more involved with our hemp growers, our hemp processors, and getting them a little bit more involved with the testing process and that awareness.
I'm very curious about the testing because, like many people, I would assume have many questions about what's actually going on. Why is it the testing limited to certain facilities and not the general public, and how it works? So you'll have to clarify all of that stuff.
Sure.
You're into the science, you said. Does that mean you're coming from a science background?
Yeah, myself, I went to CU Boulder. I graduated in 2009 with a degree in neuroscience. I work more, my main role with the company is more on a business development side, but that's what I really love about the lab is we're a science-based business. So we can really incorporate that science and the education piece, the data, into a more business-involved standpoint.
Yeah. How many labs total in Colorado are doing testing?
It's going up and down every day, but I would say there's roughly about 15 licensed labs in the state right now.
That's what I thought, very small handful.
Yeah, it's so their role is to provide this mandated testing that's been put in place by the state of Colorado. RM3 Labs, we're a little bit larger lab, so we really have the capacity now to bring on new hemp clients, people that aren't necessarily under these marijuana regulations, but still are concerned about the testing, need to know how much THC is in their product.
Is the lab, though, just a cannabis testing lab, or are you testing for other things as well?
We're primarily cannabis and hemp now. We can perform a variety of tests for, say, soil tests, nutrient tests. You know, if a client's looking to have their water tested to see what's the pH of my starting water, am I starting with a clean source? We can provide any of that starting testing, but we are primarily here for the cannabis industry and now as well the hemp industry.
How does this work? People send you a sample in the mail, test that sample, and then you send them a report?
So not through the mail. That's one weird kind of thing.
Well,
is there's a system,
so they can, I guess, do that. So they have to physically drop it off.
Physically drop it off. We do offer free pickup, though. So we do free pickup, Boulder, Denver, along the Front Range. If you're outside of the Front Range, you know, we definitely like to work with you, at least get one day a week that we can send someone out there for a free pickup. Anyone that we test for has to be registered with what's called the metric system, and that's a tracking system that's been utilized by the cannabis industry now for about 2 years. It simply uses RFID tags to transfer the sample from facility A to facility B, and then that's how we actually go and report that testing through this metric reporting system. And then we also have a unique reporting system to our own lab where we give you a more marketing ready tool for you to use those test reports for.
To understand what the tests say, something that's a little
Absolutely.
user-friendly.
And, you know, say you're selling a CBD tincture out on the market, There's 50 other CBD brands out there. We can give you a test report to also provide to your consumer to say, we tested this at a third-party lab, and here's the exact concentration of the batch that you ordered and was delivered to your door.
A little seal of approval.
Exactly.
The laboratories have to be approved, or I guess get approval by the MED. What is their role in regulating the quantity of labs out there?
So I would say the MED is, quantities involved, but their main concern is making sure the quality of the labs. So each test we perform, and we perform a variety from potency to tell you the cannabinoid concentration to microbial contaminants, letting you know if there's salmonella, E. coli, your total yeast and mold.
Wow.
And then also,
finding that in samples?
we found it maybe in a little bit more than we would have thought to found in Colorado. I think one thing that Colorado is doing is they're doing a pretty tight limit. So with microbial, we test for E. coli, salmonella, and total yeast and mold. Your total yeast and mold count is, the majority of our failures come in that area. And the limit for Colorado is 10,000 colony-forming units per gram.
Don't even know what that means. But is this one of those things where we're just going to be grossed out if we learn what's actually allowed to be in a product? Like, donuts can have so many rat hairs and so many mice hands and that kind of stuff. Is this going to be one of those things that if people actually knew what they were consuming in their product but was that allowed, we would be a little shocked?
Yes and no. I would say yes, and we found initially maybe more failures than we would have expected. But like I said, Colorado looks at the limits 10,000 colony-forming units.
How can you put that in some type of perspective of measurement for us? What does that mean?
So,
10,000 colony, what was the exact?
Colony-forming units.
Okay.
So forming, a colony of bacteria. And to put that in perspective, we're testing our limits 10,000. What you can see is roughly at 1 million. So we're testing for a level of, molds that are, below a visible threshold. So I think Colorado
is a per square inch type measure?
It'd be, in this case, per gram of product.
Okay.
So we're testing, say, 1 gram of marijuana bud, or it could be 1 gram of concentrated product. And in testing that product, in order for it to be passing on a Colorado recreational marijuana mandate, it has to have less than 10,000 colony-forming units. So you're putting this onto a petri dish, for example, and from that 1 gram, you need to have less than 10,000 units formed.
So you're just growing mold like any other
bacteria type test, exactly. And so for marijuana, it has to be less than 10,000 colony-forming units per gram. What's visible is 1 million. So it's definitely a little bit of a shock what's there. But Colorado's doing a really good job about making sure we go beyond what's visible and, really making sure that this is a safe product getting into the consumer.
Wow. When somebody gives you a sample, is there a minimum requirement they have to give you? Because if one of those grams is being used to see if there's mold, you need another gram to test for. Take me through the process.
That's a really good question. And kind of what you were asking with how the state monitors for quantity, they also monitor for the quality of each test. Each test we perform, say it's potency, microbial, residual solvents, we must be certified by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. And so for each of those tests, we're certified for a certain sample amount. So say a microbial test is the test we ask for the most sample size, and that's roughly about 2 grams. So typically for a sample size, it's a very minimal amount of product needed to be able to get a good, fair sample size.
Who determines what test is being done?
Typically by the client. For the cannabis side, there's a certain number of mandated tests, right now being microbial, residual solvents, and potency testing. On the hemp side here, we offer those same tests for our clients, but it's more up to the client for what they're looking to analyze.
So they're not under an obligation of regulation, whereas on the medicinal side, there is a very strict obligation of what they have to provide, what has to be tested for. The hemp side you're saying is a little more voluntary?
Hemp side, at the moment it's all voluntary. We do the same testing, use a little bit different instrumentation than the Colorado Department of Agriculture, but we can perform that similar potency test that's mandated for these hemp growers. But anything in addition is voluntary. So if they're, say, using a new sort of pesticide or, different nutrient line and they want to test to make sure that that's clean based off certain state regulations, we can help test that product. It's all voluntary. It's on no liability for the client that they're going to get in trouble for testing something, or say they're trying out a new strain line, plant a new plant, they want to test it. If it's above 0.3%, they're not in trouble. It's just that client's responsibility then to do what's right with the product.
Who gets that information?
Only our client.
Only the client.
Yes.
So if the state comes knocking and says, hey, I noticed you're testing some hemp growers over here, we want to look at their result, are you under any obligation to disclose that?
We are up, with certain laws. If we're subpoenaed to give certain information for, a court, in that situation, we do have to abide by those laws. But if we do receive a plant that tests above the 0.3%, we are not required to actively reach out any organization. It's all up to the facility.
Like a bank making deposits where you have to report certain deposits.
Exactly.
I wonder, though, why they wouldn't just make it a blanket obligation for hemp or marijuana. I'm curious to why they don't obligate that for hemp growers.
To be told on that stuff.
Because why wouldn't that be just as important?
And so was a big question for us and many of our clients as well. From the CDA, their perspective is we didn't take the sample, we didn't track the sample, and we didn't test the sample. So for their chain of custody and that integration of the sample, they need to know exactly what plant it came from, how it was tested, how it was tracked. So it's really more of a informational tool for our clients to help them better manage their growing processes, their processing processes, more so than regulating what they do.
So I'm a dispensary. What is my obligation for testing? Monthly, weekly, per batch, per grow cycle? What am I doing?
If you're medical right now, there's no mandate. Recreational there is, which almost kind of seems a little bit backwards. Medical is looking like these mandates might come July, but right now for recreational dispensary, for potency, you're required to process validate every strain.
So I was under the impression it was the opposite, that medical was being tested, recreational was not.
That's absolutely what you would think it would be. On the medical side, this is people using it as a medicine. They need to know their dosage. It's often people who have a compromised immune system and are a little bit more sensitive to the solvents that could be left behind. Even a small microbial contamination to it, it's more sensitive. However, right now, it's recreational that's being tested, not the medical side.
I am shocked that this is the first time I'm hearing this when all these years I had been under the impression it was the opposite.
That's what I hear from just about every person that this conversation happens with is you really would think it would happen from the medical side. But we're excited to see, hopefully July, there should be medical mandates for Colorado for testing, pretty similar to what's happening for recreational right now, which includes potency, residual solvents, and microbial contaminants.
Okay, so I'm a recreational dispensary. You come with your pickup van. What do I give you? Do I just give you a baggie full of flour? And what am I doing?
So each test and each sample gets its own tag. So say you have some awesome Blue Dream and you want to test that to find the potency and how many microbial contaminants are in. We need 1 gram for potency testing, and that has RFID tag number 1. Then we need 2 grams additionally for microbial testing, and that comes packaged in its own little bag, plastic container with its own RFID tag number 2. So each sample needs to have its own tag affiliated for testing, and that's then how the product is released on the dispensary side. Okay. Once each mandated test gets its little check of approval, star, good to go, then that product is then released in the system and it will be sold on a retail front.
And is this a type of setup where I pay you just a flat fee for these tests, or is it based on something else?
We have a standard flat rate, but we do offer volume discounts. So say there's someone who's testing a large number of potency samples, we'll give them a break on that bulk. But we also do bulks across a variety of tests. So if someone's doing a full comprehensive test, looking at pesticides, terpenes, cannabinoids, microbial contaminants, we do offer discounts for incorporating more tests in a bigger volume.
When might somebody do that type of test? When they have a new strain coming out?
I would always test terpenes. That's one that you can test a little bit more periodically. I think can be used a little bit more as a marketing tool. It's something right now that's not mandated, but you definitely are seeing an interest on the consumer level for people who have a certain effect to terpenes. Limonene has a really nice effect for them. It makes them feel energetic, awake. For some people, limonene might make them feel a little bit more anxious or agitated. And so giving that, it's just additional information for your client that can maybe help better sell your product. And it also gives transparency showing, we're not using pesticides. Our product's free of contaminants. We're showing you everything that we have here, and we're not trying to hide the product or, use something that's maybe a little bit harmful to you to give a higher THC level. It gives that transparency and more confidence from your client.
Yeah, which is probably 90% of how a dispensary is going to live and die, is what people have the impression of it, right?
Absolutely.
If their product is contaminated, that dispensary is dead.
Doesn't help them very much. In Colorado, we can't really advertise as well as any other industry for our product. So there's a lot of word of mouth, and a lot's based on customer experience. And if you know someone that's had a really good or really bad customer experience, can play a really big role. So having that transparency and letting people know what you have to offer, and being really upfront, I think can be a really great advantage.
Of a gram bud that's being tested, how much of it's being actually used?
We typically use roughly a half gram, maybe a little bit more of that.
So what happens to the other half?
We always ask for that because we want to, if we need to double check that, we can. Say, instruments or machines, anything can happen. Say a power goes out, or we just want to have that extra assurance. We have that product sample there, and we found from a consumer standpoint, the value of that half gram of product isn't as valuable as if we need to do the retest, we can get done that much faster having the product available. By the state laws, we do store all of that product for the designated period of time, and once done, it's destroyed per MED regulations. So unfortunately, it's not a big party at the end where everyone gets to sample everything or give it back to the clients. Unfortunately, it all goes to the trash. All good things must come to an end.
Since you're kind of new to this, since you said you just started not too long ago, what was your catalyst to wanting to get involved into this? Why did you decide this is the industry you need to bring your skills to?
Totally. So I went to CU Boulder. Totally. I graduated with a degree in neuroscience in 2013. So pretty recent graduate. And in my time at CU, I did work at a medical marijuana dispensary.
Okay.
Marijuana has always been a hobby of mine, pastime pleasure. And so it's been really nice getting to involve the science part of it, the educational piece, to something that I've been passionate about. So I worked on the dispensary side for about a year after college, doing inventory management, compliance, learning all the laws, and then got myself onto the testing lab side, which I really found more stimulating for me. I'm not only getting to incorporate the science and learn more from that level, but I'm interacting with the consumers and the community and helping educate people. A lot of our inline consumers are people who are using this as a medicine and don't really know anything about the process or what 100 milligrams means versus what 30 milligrams means. And so really helping educate and bring positive light to an industry that maybe has been looked down on a little bit before.
I'm glad you brought up to what a milligrams mean, because I have a question about that.
Awesome.
As many people probably do, about what is activated versus not activated, what is edible milligrams versus, whatever else. I want to show you a picture real quick, though, of something, so you can help explain the testing that was done on it. So I bought a product from a dispensary, a concentrate product.
Okay.
That had the testing on the label. So I'm showing you a picture of a box called Chroma Plus, which is basically an extract oil. It's more like honey, actually. It's very difficult to work with, not like shatter. It's not like wax. It's literally like honey.
It's like honey. If you could imagine, you touch it and it just strings. It looks like honey in it. Very clear.
Okay, yeah.
It's a very clear, very liquidy looking substance. So on their package, what they have here is they have a couple pieces of information. They have the date, they have a batch number, and then they have a total potential cannabinoid percentage, which says 94.19, which I'll ask you to explain. And then they have a THCA 16.9, THC 75.6. You can explain the difference between a total potential versus the actual breakdown. Take me through some of this, because as much as a consumer I would like to be informed, and as much as I go, oh, well, I got a product with testing information on it and I guess I'm safe, this means absolutely nothing to me.
What can you do with it from there? Yeah, absolutely. So with every cannabinoid, you'll find an acidic version and a non-acidic version. So that would be your THCA being your acidic version and THC being your non-acidic. And you have that same with CBDA and your CBD. Your acidic version is what's naturally found in the plant. So if you pick a flower off of a growing cannabis or hemp plant, the majority of the cannabinoids you're going to see there are in their acidic version. And that means they have an extra carboxyl group on there. When you smoke cannabis, smoke hemp, you're applying a flame to it. And that heat, that energy, decarboxylates it, which means it removes that carboxyl group and it converts your THCA or CBDA to THC or
this is the
CBD.
process that you're talking about when people are making edibles that they refer to it as to decarboxylize.
Exactly, yeah, that decarboxylation
of your flour before actually grinding it and cooking it into your butter or whatever. For that same reason, that the heat is what's making it active.
You
right?
are, yep.
Active.
Absolutely correct.
Psychoactive components.
Yep, you're removing that carboxyl group, the receptors that are inherent in our body are ready to interact with the non-acidic version.
So what do our bodies do if we consume non-decarb products?
So if you eat, a flower, THCA,
I pick a bud off a plant and I eat it.
You're going to have very minimal effect, if any, because when your body's metabolizing that, there's not quite enough energy to fully decarboxylate that and make it a receptor-ready compound.
You're talking about a psychological effect,
yes.
Psychoactive effect.
Or
so what
even,
about just a nutritional effect of absorbing that THC into my body?
And THCA on its own, there's been less studies, but it has been found to have a few small medical benefits to it, maybe just not as profound as THC. Or even CBD interacts with a slightly separate group of receptors from THC. And even with that, you want the non-acidic version. Those non-acidic versions, you can almost think about it a key going into a door lock. When you have the acidic version, there's an extra little piece on that key that makes it a little bit harder to get into the lock. When you apply that heat by, say, making an edible, cooking the oil over the stove, or applying the flame when you smoke it, you remove that piece of the key and the key slides right in that lock and you can open it. So having that non-acidic version is really kind of what allows you to interact correctly with that receptor and get the full effect. So THCA, CBDA on their own have found to have, their own effects, but it's much more minor compared to these non-acidic versions. And specifically with cannabis, when you're looking for that psychoactive effect, you're looking to have a high THC. So if you're looking for an edible, something you're just ingesting and there's no flame applied or, enough heat to decarboxylate it, when you buy your edible, it's typically decarboxylated oil. It's already THC ready for your body to take it in. When you're in a flower, you'll typically find a higher THCA value because it's when you're applying that flame, you're creating THC, and then that's what's you're actually getting that effect from. So on that picture you had, your total cannabinoids, it was around 94% or so. Yeah. That's all your cannabinoids, whether it's THCA, THC, so it's all of those combined.
If we take these two and add them up, the 75 THC and the 16 THCA, that's what the total is?
Exactly, you're 94. And, certain labs will give you a theoretical active amount. And that's what they'll do is they'll take that THCA value and multiply that by a standard decarboxylation conversion.
If I'm looking for a product that has the most effect from a psychoactive, am I looking at the total potential or am I looking at one of these other two?
Ultimately, the total potential, but if you were in a flower, you would want a higher THCA. If you were or same with the concentrate, something where you're applying it to a high amount of heat, which will take care of that decarboxylation process. Flower or concentrates, you want a higher THCA. Anything you're smoking, anything you're just ingesting and eating, you would want a higher THC or CBD or that non-acidic version because it's already ready to interact with your
system.
system.
This is a concentrate that's already ready. It's an extract that's ready to be smoked. So it has a much higher just THC
exactly
versus the THCA. Very good at explaining this. You have a good way of explaining it. You have some good descriptions, and it probably helps that you understand what you're talking about.
Well, thanks. Try experience.
Why is there no CBD registered on this? Because it's not required, so they just don't do it? Or because the product itself just doesn't have any CBD in it, so they didn't test for it?
Exactly. Product itself wouldn't have it. Certain labs, you can test for a variety of cannabinoids. One thing with our lab is we test for CBG and CBGA, and that is a precursor for THC and CBD. I'm trying to think of kind of another general analogy. You have product A, and if you throw grape juice at it, it's going to produce grapes. If you throw orange juice at it, it's going to produce orange juice. Same starting material, but what you introduce it to affects the process. Okay. So depending how much THCA synthase or CBDA synthase, two different compounds in the plant, you're going to have a higher CBD or THC value. So having THC or CBD is typically dependent on the genetics of the plant.
What is the highest you have seen, either in a flower form or concentrate form, that either you've tested for or that you've heard about, the myth out there of the highest potential?
Totally. So for flower, on overall cannabinoid concentration, about the highest we've seen is 34% total, which is pretty high. And when you think about, this one bud, a third of it is cannabinoids, not just the materials that make up the plant. That's pretty crazy to think.
Does that visually look different? That type of, what are we looking at from a visual standpoint?
A lot of times it's almost sugary coated. Okay. You can kind of see the trichomes a little bit more. It's more dense, a little bit more frosty looking. And those trichomes are what contain those different resin glands and contain your terpenes and your cannabinoids.
So there is a visual test that can be done even if you don't have the ability to send off to a test. If you see a bud that visually is coated with more of the crystal trichomes, that can be assumed to have a higher
definitely, yeah, it definitely gives you a little bit of an idea of where it's at.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe 34 is around the most I've seen in a cannabis plant. As far as concentrates go, what's really cool is a lot of these companies out there are developing their methodology to remove impurities and further concentrate this product. And we've seen upwards of, specifically CBD, but upwards of 99%, where people are really designing a crystallite, pure product, which then can be introduced to make any other sort of product.
Pure THC.
And this one was CBD. Pure CBD, which I think is great because then you're almost incorporating this more as an ingredient and it can give consistency.
Did you see what this looked like?
Yeah, almost like a cocaine type, like a white crystal powder. It looks very pure. It's not an oil. Not a keef. It was, crystalline to where you can have a big crystal chunk of it that then gets broken down to more of a white fine powder.
When you break it apart, it breaks into a powder, not into a goopy or...
Yeah, it's all crystalline solid. No oils or anything like that to it.
It's not a keef. It's not just a compressed...
Nope. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting product. The first time it came into our lab for testing, I was a little bit nervous if we should accept it because I didn't know what it was. This can't be cannabis.
And why can't there be testers in this? Why can't there be somebody who...
Yeah, sits right alongside. It's like, all right, well, let me give this a try for an anecdotal evidence.
Right? You have to know what the physical human effect is, right?
I'll be one of the first to apply for that job.
And unfortunately, you don't have the chance to actually test what comes through the lab, but you do get to see where it's coming from. So you probably have your own personal list of what places are submitting some good stuff.
We do see that. I try not to judge too much. I've been a consumer for the industry for a little bit of time, so I always like to seek out, different unique products and things like that. But
any well-known brands that consistently you see have high quality coming through that
I would really love to recommend that, but unfortunately, with our client confidentiality, I think it's probably something I shouldn't step on at the moment. As much as I would love.
After I turn off the microphone, I'll badger you.
Yeah, pester me for the personal.
So what is your goal in all this? Where do you want to take this? Do you want to one day open your own lab? Do you just want to be well known as the testing person? What's your goal in this industry with a career? Where are you taking this?
It's been changing, year to year. I've been in a different position, which has been exciting, learning more and more about it. But I do find more passion on this lab side, and I would love to get this education out beyond Colorado. Right now, we have one facility here in Boulder. I'd really like to see that spread and get this education out elsewhere. We have so many people moving into the state looking to use CBD medications, cannabis, anything for some sort of supplement or, almost looking for a cure. So I'd like to see that education be able to expand elsewhere so that this product can get more easily into the hands of more people.
That's really cool, and I'm kind of excited now to go look for 99% concentrates. I thought this was pretty high.
Yeah, right. That is though. That is. It's a good product.
Yeah, and it has. It's like a honey. It's literally a little sticker thing in there, and it
just pulls right. Yeah.
You can't touch it with your hand.
Yeah, game over.
You can't even do anything with it.
You can't pour it out, or you really need some sort of tool to spin it around. Or
why don't you give your contact, website, all that stuff, social media, whatever you want people to go check out and find.
Definitely. So you can find more information on our website for all of our testing services, location, and more information. And it's www.rm3.us. And for specifically more information on hemp or cannabis testing, you can reach me directly at Hannah, HANNAH, at rm3.us.
Can individuals?
At the moment, individuals cannot test with us. However, we're hoping to have a private lab up and running by around June 2016. So if you have inquiries regarding personal testing, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, why can't individuals have their stuff tested?
Unfortunately, right now for our lab, it's restricted for our licensees. We're licensed by the MED, and the MED has prevented us from doing any private testing. About 2 years ago, that's something they haven't given us a real concrete reason on. My personal guess is that, when they started putting all these mandated tests in place, they really want to make sure that every lab is able to keep up with the capacity to keep all the mandated testing going and keep the industry that they're licensed for afloat. From there, I'm hoping maybe in the next few years they'll see that all these labs can handle the capacity and more. But for the meantime, unfortunately, we can only test for people with a certain license.
Because I'm pretty sure in California you can, and in Arizona you can.
Yeah, and that's huge in California. We've heard really good things about certain labs out there, and testing's almost bigger on a interest level in California than it is in Colorado. Colorado, we look at more for a mandate and regulation piece, where California, they use it more for they care to know.
Because my thought is transparency is better, whether if I'm an individual and I'm willing to pay for it, test my stuff.
Yeah.
If I'm a business and I'm being forced to test it, it's just all around transparency.
Absolutely.
Which I think is just better for everybody.
Everyone. Yeah, it will help grow our industry, help with the legislation, help create better products, safer product. I think it's an all-around win.
And as a lab, you guys should maybe think about finding a better way to categorize product to help the industry come to a more agreed upon registry.
Proper name. Absolutely.
Because strain names is just not the way to go.
A little bit inconsistent.
Inconsistent and a little ridiculous to a point, and provides no real information to anybody, and doesn't allow consistency to even take place when it's just based on a name.
Mm-hmm.
Name means nothing from dispensary to dispensary. in quality. So I'm hoping that either the industry or maybe labs or somebody will come up with a registry that is something that can be universally communicated. So, as the other day I was using the example, when I say, hey, you want to go drink some Mad Dog 2020? I don't need to explain. You don't need to go, hey, was that from the Mad Dog 2020 up in North Glen or the Mad Dog 20 down in Colorado? Right? There's no explanation needed. The name itself signifies what you're getting. Somebody needs to figure out a way to create a registry where it means something universally, and I'm hoping maybe labs can be the pivotal point in that.
Absolutely. And we're working, it's not something that we have fully launched at the moment, but working with a variety of genotyping and gene expression tests to where you may be actually able to, on a genetic level, be able to identify, is this sour diesel? Is this OG Tahoe? So kind of working to help, maybe give a little bit more clarification to that, to where if you did buy it from shop A and shop B, at least they've both tested their genetics and you know that it is from the same line. So hoping to give a little bit more consistency there.
This is what I recommended to the dispensary I work with. So my studio is out of a dispensary, and this is what I recommended. When you have your stuff tested, use that as the basis for what the name is. Meaning, start telling people, whatever the strain is you're selling, OG Kush. Show people your test and use that as the basis
be the
of
definer.
what OG Kush is, and make your dispensary to be the one that kind of makes it public to say, hey, if you're smoking something that doesn't fall in these parameters, it's not OG Kush.
That is a smart play. That is a very smart
play. And I
play.
said, what's the worst that can happen? Is people just say, no, you're not the authority of this? Best case scenario is you become a standard where people go, is it there? Just become the standard. Just start saying, hey, these are the strains we sell. This is where the testing comes in. If you're smoking anything that's not in these parameters, it's not
You're not smoking it.
And just see if the industry adapts to it and picks up. You might become like people that name stars. You might become just the person that gets the claim to fame because you just stood up and decided to do it.
No, I haven't. That's a really unique idea. I think could be really interesting play here.
Very cool. Well, it was good to meet you.
You as well. Thanks.
Please keep in touch. Go to the website, listen to shows, and if you have anything in the future you want to promote, just send me an email.
Cool. Appreciate it. Woohoo! Well, thanks for having me. Totally.
There you go, Cannapreneurs. That's all I have for you this week. Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure to come back next week. And after the show, you can always carry on the conversation with us on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, Mass Roots, and so much more. Even YouTube. Stay involved because this is your community. So next week, we're going to have more conversations that you want to hear, more guests that are going to help us take it to the next level. This is your show, so come back. We'll see you next week.